Coming up in Down Under EV Adventures. Should you have a frunk or should you just not worry about one? Let's have a look at the Atto 3 today and all things to do with the frunk and the front of the car. Welcome back everyone to the channel. Thanks for joining me today from wherever you're watching. And here's a look at my car, which I've just cleaned. Yes, I finally cleaned it yesterday and it looks a hell of a lot better. But anyway, let's join me in real time, which was a few days ago, where we had a look at the front of the car and specifically a frunk. So it's another cold day here in Kalgoorlie. Anyway, today we're going to have a look at my frunk. I'm also going to have a look at the motor here in the front part of the Atto 3 and see what sorts of things you need to do if you own this car, or any EV for that matter. And of course we'll take you through the frunk, a few options, and I'll show you mine of course. So let's get into it. This is my custom made frunk. I'll just give it a nice clean and then we'll have a look at it in some more detail and show how it's fitted in the car. So here's the frunk. Give it a little bit of a clean because when I hosed the front of my car it got all dirt on it. Anyway, these are frunks. These are like a molded plastic which sort of fit into the front of the car there. And I got this in Perth. There's a guy there who makes it. I will put a link in the description, his phone number, and you can contact him if you're in the Perth area. He does make these periodically. So it's a molded shape, and in the bottom of it is just a little bit of sort of foam. I don't know how well you can see that, just so you can put things in there, and it's got a little bit of a soft floor, so it's big enough to put a few cables in. And I would guess it probably weighs maybe 2 or 3 kilograms. I wouldn't think it would be much more than that, so it doesn't add much weight to the car, and of course it's very useful if you want to put stuff into it. And sort of feeling how heavy it weighs and everything, I'm just wondering what the capacity of this is. So I'm wondering if I might just do a little experiment and see how many litres this holds, because I know, there's people out there who'd like to know, and they even base their decisions on buying cars on how big things like boots and frunks are. So let's see how many litres of water I can put in this, and that will give us a volume of how big it is, roughly anyway. I've got this bottle here which has 1.5 litres in it. Let's see, I'll fill it up and we'll see how many bottles this can take, this frunk of mine. This is number 21. I could do some more. Okay, 22, number 22. It's surely going to overflow now. Alright, and it's just starting to overflow, so gee, almost 22. So that was almost 22 bottles, 1.5 litre bottles. I'm going to call it 21 and a half, and that gets you to around about 32 litres, give or take a litre or two. So just more than 30 litres, which I think is not a bad size. Alright, I better empty this and let it dry out. While that's drying out, we'll just have a quick look. So you can see there's the motor down there, 150 kilowatts. Just giving it a wee bit of a clean because it's been getting a bit dirty lately. Now the only thing you'll really need to use under here is the wiper refill there. which you can refill with water, of course. And everything else I would just monitor, so that's within tolerances, that fluid there. Other than that, one of the great things about owning an EV is there's very little maintenance on them. The 12-volt battery is there if you did have any issues with it. Thankfully I haven't, but I know some people have had issues with that battery system. And other than that, there shouldn't be much for you to do in here, and as you can see there's plenty of room there to put the frunk in. So that's what we'll look at next, how this particular frunk fits in here, and then some other options for you. My trunk's fitted with Velcro strips there. There's a few spots where you can put them on your car. You get them when you buy them from this guy in Perth, and the advantage to having those, there's no screws to worry about, no bolts. You can just pull it out easily when your car's ready for a service. So I'll show you it now. It should be dry. We'll go and have a look. Okay, so it's drying off here. So you can see there's one strip there. It's basically two on one side and one there on the other side. I don't know where you can see that in the shade. Alright, let's go and put it in. Basically line those Velcro straps up there. You can see it sits in there nice and snug, and you've got a bit of room there to put some things in. Pretty much just use it for my Type 2 to Type 2 cable. So this is the cable, your BYO cable, which you may need sometimes. If the DC fast chargers aren't working, you can usually get an AC charge to work here in Western Australia at the EV network. That fits nicely in there because it's something which I don't use that often, but it's always good to have it in an emergency. I know there's some people put fire extinguishers and things in there, well, which I don't think is that a great idea. I think if your car catches fire, the last thing you want to be doing is jumping in your frunk, but hey, maybe you've got another usage for it. So there you have it. That's the frunk and what I use it for. And like I said, this particular one I think is very good. It's very sturdy, strong, but it's fairly light. So it's like aluminium, strong and light. Just a type of resin, I think, which has been formed. So there you go, that's a great option. Now if you didn't want to do this option as a frunk, you can hop online and there's other ones which you can use which actually cover the whole part of the car there. So there's a very quick example of one I just googled under AliExpress. There's one there which covers the whole area, as you can see, and but this one, it does use, I think, screws to fasten it. Now the disadvantage to those is that they do use things like clips and screws and bolts and things, so I'm not particularly a fan of them. I think it's much easier to get something in and out like this, and realistically most people aren't going to look under there. They're not going to worry about a few things here, and you know, the storage is all you'll need. You've seen that that's a pretty good storage for a frunk, especially for this class of vehicle. I think it's excellent. So there you have it, that's my frunk, and like I said, I'll put a link for those people living in Perth. You can ring up the guy and see how you go. So check out that link below if you do live in Perth, Western Australia, and you're after a frunk. I'll put the phone number there, and you know, it's a pretty good option, I think, if you own an Atto 3. Alright, so that's the frunk. Whether you want to have one or not, well, it's up to you. It's only a little bit of a storage space, but you know, all storage I think is handy, so I think it's a good option. Alright, that's it for today. Thanks very much for joining us, I really appreciate it. I'm heading off to Perth pretty soon. I should have time to do a couple of episodes, hopefully before I go. And I did go to Perth a couple of weeks ago, and I tested out a higher tyre pressure and checking the economy on a long trip. So I've been hanging on to that footage, but I'll probably do that episode next. And while I'm away, I hope to do a few episodes as well. So I've got some interesting content coming up. Alright, thanks again. I really appreciate it. Take care on those roads, watch out for those potholes, and we'll see you very soon with more great stuff on Down Under EV Adventures. Bye for now.